Hello, welcome back to the Fox Strength Performance YouTube channel. I am Taylor Fox, and we're now going to try this angle because my mount fell off the other window. This honestly might be better in the long term, although I think by definition it impedes line of sight, even though it doesn't. I can see everything. But I just remember having that issue when I cracked my windshield, and I was told by a number of technicians when trying to get an inspection that it had to be fixed because it impeded line of sight. It's like I'm 6'2", like I'm seeing over it, like doesn't cause me an issue. So I was able to get it past that year and then had to get it replaced the next year, fortunately. But you guys won't see this until next week. I'm still driving back from Sebastian's after purchasing the log and then did a video at his place. So that should be out by now, well before this release. Hopefully, we'll see. But just wanted to make another video because we had talked about kind of training frequency, and like he was like, you know, if I don't get enough sleep, I'll just take the day off. And he's obviously done pretty well for himself. Like he's been successful in competitions and seems to continue to get stronger and progress. And he's really trying hard to like get better at events. So when he has to take that day off, like, is it really that bad? Yes, like you want to get exposure to all the events. You want to be well practiced and ready to go for competition. But like I've talked about in the past, you don't need like maximum exposure to every single event. Like I go into competition for a sandbag carry and I feel pretty confident in training sandbag pretty minimally. Now it's like, yeah, I got 238 feet at Battle for the Bridge, and you know, other guys got 250, one guy got above that. So it's like, I guess I could have practiced more and maybe got better distance, I don't know. Moved a little bit faster, but I think my concerns were more speed on yoke, pressing for sure. So it's like I put more of my resources towards that. And there's just gonna be days that pop up. It's like, you know, he's good at log, clean, and press. Does he really need to train log that day versus like he probably shouldn't be skipping any of his deadlift days or his upper back days or like stuff where he's focusing on like glute accessories. He needs to train all that to push his deadlift up. But yeah, I think like if he's trying to train press 2 to 3 times a week and he wants to drop that third day, I don't think that's too much of an issue. And it's like what Dave Tate says, like, how do you really know what optimal is till you've pushed it? And I would certainly say he's pushed it. I've definitely pushed it. Train 5 to 6 days a week. You're just like bruised and battered, not recovering, or do like 4 competitions in a month. And then when you dial it back and you can see like how much better you recover with a little less, you can see where optimal is. But if you don't push that envelope a little bit at times, you really don't know where optimal is. And that's not a set point either. It's always changing. It's going to adjust based on how you progress, how you move forward, your practice with the events. So you can't continue to sit there and be like, well, I already know what pushing above this is because I did it before a year or 2 ago. And that set point has probably changed at this point. If you've been training hard and training smart and working, you know, through your training the way you're supposed to for your goals, it's going to adjust and you're going to need to kind of go to a little more of a surge again. That's kind of how I described it to a client recently. It's like, we're going to be consistent, maintain, build a training standard, but then it's like we do want to surge a little bit and kind of find out where that limit is a little bit more. And listening to some stuff lately, going back to like Table Talk and Dave Tate, it's like RIR, RPE use is like very popular now. I use it with clients because I think people feel more comfortable having seen it in so many programs at this point. So it's something that they understand or are familiar with. But I always used to go by percentages and really stick with that. And they were usually like underwhelming percentages, like not anything crazy. So I think the point they were making on this podcast episode was like, nobody wants to train to failure anymore. Nobody wants to push it really hard. They're like, oh, don't want to go above an RP 9 or don't want to go above like 1 rep in reserve. Like I was told to keep reps in reserve. I was told to avoid failure, and that's what I'm going to do. And I mean, I program like that, 2 reps in reserve, or we're going to like an RP 8 or 9. But I have so many people that push it too hard and it's like, it's a 7, and then they're like at like above an 8. I'm like, okay, like the point was to not crush yourself this week so we can progress. But then it's like I give them those opportunities to fail. You give them those opportunities to like hit this for like a hard single, hit this set of heavy dips, or hit like a drop set where you go to failure. Like really push it and, you know, find out what that limit is, because then we can come back to that movement later on, or you can push it with something else. And that's how you're going to progress. That's progressive overload. Of course, there's like, it doesn't have to be failure. It can be adding volume. It can be adding tempo. All of those are great. And that's kind of how we like shift things. I would like start people off with like a hack squat. And then it's like, now we're going to do 1.5 reps. We're going to do pauses on the concentric or pauses on the eccentric, depending on kind of how I'm looking to attack things. So adding in those little wrinkles and variations is a great way to accomplish that as well. I will often get a lot of feedback that training initially with me, like the programs that I write, are underwhelming in that first couple weeks or that first block. But it's like when you get to the second block, you're like, oh crap. So it's like, yeah, just take that and make sure that you're adapted and make sure that you're comfortable with the training, because then when it's like we start doing iso holds or we start doing pauses, we start doing more sets of that, that's really going to be the struggle. And then you're going to find out like, oh, well, now this is overwhelming versus the underwhelming portion. But we do both so that we can find that optimal place to kind of settle into and maintain that standard. And then we're going to push for super compensation, assuming that we're preparing for a competition. But even if we're not, like, there are people that have goals. Like, there's goals of like, I want to be in better fitness for this recreational activity. I want to be better fitness for like this endeavor that I'm trying to do, that isn't necessarily like a strongman competition, a powerlifting competition. And that stuff is important too, and that is stuff we want to progress to. And one of the best ways to progress is progressive overload in some form, whether that's the intensity, volume, frequency. So this dude often trains outside or trains in like a small kind of garage type setting, and it's not optimal. There's probably like certain times a day, certain days of the week that he can train, but I would fully expect to like throw gloves on and go out there and there's ice on the log, like clear out a spot to have good footing, to be able to clean and press or run yoke even when it's all icy on the ground. Or, you know, like you have work and you're waking up early in the morning to train, stuff like that, and try to push yourself harder while also in conditions that are certainly not optimal. So again, it's like, what is optimal? But we're not really in the sport of like things being optimal. We're in a sport where it's like anything can really happen. You could be competing in a car park, like Sebastian had mentioned, like it's a car park sport. We had the Lift Evil competition the one year. It poured rain and Frank was like, well, we're still doing the yoke get walk and we're still doing the sandbag throw. And the competitors literally ran out in the pouring rain and they did those events outside because we just didn't have the space to do every single event inside. So we couldn't make that adjustment, and the athletes had to compete in suboptimal conditions outside in the pouring rain, and then for some of them come back inside and deadlift heavy, press heavy, load stones. So I think being acclimated to these conditions is really important if you want to do sports like this. I want to avoid like saying everybody's soft nowadays, but like it really is kind of the case. It's like, what did you do with like a team sport that you played growing up? You went outside in the rain to practice. You went outside in the snow to practice. You competed because they're not moving the game unless it's like really bad weather. But if it's like a little bit of snow, a little bit of rain, like we're gonna have the game. So you need to be prepared to those conditions, especially the same thing with like heat. Like yes, we can be in the black as far as hot weather or cold weather, but if we're not, we're going outside to play, we're going outside to practice because we need to be ready for those specific conditions to go outside and play. And now all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, like you can't squat if we're not in temperature controlled settings. You can't go outside and train strongman events, it's too cold. And it's just kind of ridiculous. And you see like this individual is over here like progressing, really excelling in his certain class at the moment. and doing really well. And then others are like, how, like, I really want to do well in the sport. How do I do that? And then it's like, well, like, I don't want to do this or I don't want to do that. And it's like, you really need to be willing to do everything. I've worked days where it's like I've shown up at Power Build at 5 o'clock in the morning, and it's like every member there has that advantage of being able to show up literally whenever they want. So there really is an excuse. And again, if we return to the initial discussion, it's like, yes, there's those days you need to take off. You might work 20 of 24 hours in a day, and it's an event or it's a day you really didn't need to do, whether it's your second arm day of the week or it's your event that's like, you got this in the bag for the competition, let's rest for the deadlift or for a moving event that you need to really focus more on. But if it's that specific day where you need to really practice this and then you just decide not to go and not work on it, it's kind of stupid, and it really isn't like a great way to go about things. I have clients that are programmed for 5 days a week, and they are there every morning, every single day, holidays, like they kind of, it doesn't matter. They're still punching the clock. They get the training session in, and it's literally an hour. Like, it's not all day. Yes, I've sat there because I was so horrible at axle clean and press and trained for 3 hours just doing axle clean and press or circus dumbbell. Like, when I was like, I suck at circus dumbbell and I was really frustrated, and I was like, I'm just gonna sit here for 2 hours and add 5 pounds and take my full rest period, do that single, add another 5 pounds, make sure I'm fully rested, do that next single. And it was like 90 degrees outside, and I didn't care because I was like, I need to get better at circus dumbbell. And that's how I got my circus dumbbell above 200 pounds, by just doing that, rather than like, I worked up to 180, let's jump to 200 or 210. Oh, I didn't hit it, too bad. Maybe I'll do some back offs or another pressing movement, and then I'm done for the day. We're talking about that line, but we're definitely going over the line. And then a lot of training, we're going to be under the line. And then majority of the training is going to be on that optimal line, but you got to go both areas to kind of find that. And then you always need to reset and kind of determine where both ends of the spectrum are over a course of time, and, you know, keep that in check. And that's just really defining periodization, I would say, as well. So it's interesting to think about. It's something that I'm getting back into, kind of looking at, am I going to prepare for a competition? How am I going to start this training up? Injured my pec a little bit, thinking driving to the gym now that we're gonna just give it a go a little bit on some flies, see how that tension in the muscle feels. I would say benching is out of the question for a while. I'll probably start my next block and avoid the benching for a little bit and see how that goes with the other pressing movements. But I don't feel like it should feel too bad, like overhead stuff, which is obviously more what I need to train. I was very happy with the progression with bench, especially the floating leg bench, and then just a little too much muscle tension, I guess. Maybe a little too depleted, dehydrated when I tried to push that last rep, which is unfortunate because it came up pretty well, but yeah, I felt that hard pull through the tendinous attachment. But now I'm gonna try to kind of find that underwhelming point to start reacclimating the muscle, and then we'll train kind of in an optimal state specifically for that while we kind of start up a new block of training. And then eventually, you know, there'll be some stuff where it's like, okay, now I'm prepared to do some really hard work, and I'm gonna get after it and just really test things out and see where we go from there. But I hope you guys enjoyed this discussion. Definitely an interesting topic, and kind of a 2-part series with the strength card talk, taking this trip out to purchase this log. But until next time, keep lifting those heavy weights, hold strong.